What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Magazine Dreams, the drama film starring Jonathan Majors. Of course, this film was getting a lot of attention back when it debuted at Sundance 2023. People thought the film was good. People thought the Majors performance was excellent. The film got bought up by Searchlight, dated for December 2023, and awards push was coming. And of course, flashback to 2 years ago, Jonathan Majors, after rocketing up out of indie stardom, starting with The Last Black Man in San Francisco, where I first saw him, he found himself as the new big bad in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, cast as Kang the Conqueror. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was coming out 2 months later. He also was the chief antagonist in Creed 3 opposite Michael B. Jordan. And then to have an awards push movie at the end of the year, it was shaping up to be the year of Jonathan Majors. And of course, as we know, that all crashed down following the extensive allegations against Jonathan Majors regarding domestic violence, emotional abuse, even physical violence as well. And that did result in Majors being convicted of 2 misdemeanor charges regarding him assaulting an ex girlfriend. Once that court decision did come to pass, Marvel officially dropped Majors from the MCU, and Kang has been excised from the storytelling following Loki Season 2. He was dropped by his agency. All future projects were canceled. He was going to be involved in a Dennis Rodman movie, which certainly would have been interesting. And this movie obviously was shelved, and Searchlight dropped it. And now Magazine Dreams is actually out in a pretty small release. It just came out last weekend in 815 theaters from the independent distribution firm Briarcliff, of course, notably, who released the Donald Trump movie The Apprentice last fall. Some people will choose not to see this movie because the star of the film is, in fact, someone convicted of domestic violence, and even if you just take it a step further, has certainly come across as someone with a strange persona, to say the least. His comeback tour regarding the release of this movie has been very much hands off regarding talking about any of the past controversies. Not to rehash everything that's happened, but I would understand people not wanting to see the movie. I think that's perfectly reasonable. On the other hand, the movie has been released, and Jonathan Majors is not this movie. He is the star, the face of the film, of course, but a lot of people, hundreds of people, were involved in the creation of this movie, and I don't think it's fair to them to have their work ignored just because the star of the movie is now damaged goods. Chief among them, I think, would be director and writer Elijah Bynum. To this point, Bynum has been most well known for directing Hot Summer Nights, which is most well known for being one of the early Timothée Chalamet movies, right as he was blowing up in 2017. And of course, it's worth remembering why people were really excited about this movie at Sundance 2023 in the first place. It's because the movie is good. I will stop short of calling the movie great. I think the movie does have some things that hold it back, but I do think the movie is quite compelling, and a big part of that is the Jonathan Majors performance. Magazine Dreams is an effective drama film about a troubled bodybuilder who is so obsessively committed to his craft, but still struggles to find acceptance, find connection everywhere else in his life. Jonathan Majors plays Killian Maddox, someone who is prone to violence when he can't control his emotions, something that hits particularly close to home given everything that's happened with Jonathan Majors in the last 2 years. The film definitely can be compared to Taxi Driver in terms of the arc that Maddox goes on. I think the movie is most successful in presenting a lot of the physical manifestations of what's happening to this character. What holds me back from calling the movie great is that it doesn't quite go inside the mind of Maddox quite nearly as much. This movie presents a lot of ideas, and I don't think the ending does a good job of wrapping all that up together. It's a bit too neat and a bit too vague for me. But the Majors performance, perhaps the last one of any significance we'll ever see, is very good. When I first starting the movie, I was wondering where exactly we were set because, it comes across as, like SoCal. I don't know if it explicitly puts you in LA, but it felt like 90s LA to me. We're seeing all these local news broadcasts about violence in the area. They're using a landline at home. Maddox is using like an old school camera to record himself, and I'm like, when is this taking place? And then you watch more of the movie and you realize Maddox is uploading stuff to YouTube, and he actually references the year 2015. So he's like, okay, no, it's actually a modern set movie. But for a while, I was like, when is this taking place? Which I thought was kind of cool how it was kind of like ambiguously grounded. And yeah, right off the bat, I mean, Majors just really dives into this character. I mean, socially awkward, perhaps on the spectrum a little bit, We learn coming from a broken home, both of his parents are gone. We'll find out why. References to past anger issues that again hit pretty close to home. The movie is an unsettling watch because you're spending time with this troubled person who's at times incredibly terrifying, and also at times we're incredibly empathetic to them. And I do think the presentation of that character, at least initially, is pretty impressive again because the performance is like so physical, so outward from Majors. Killian Maddox is this guy who's like so desperate to find acceptance in life because he doesn't really connect with people elsewhere, and he's so committed to being a bodybuilder. Of course, he's been abusing steroids for years at this point, and he's also engaging in a one-sided Eminem Stan relationship with this bodybuilder that he idolizes, Brad Vanderhorn, played by real life bodybuilder Mike O'Hearn. You take time, you go back and forth between feeling bad for the guy and being pretty repulsed by the guy as his behavior begins to devolve, as his motivations and focus become incredibly one-sided, one-minded. I think they do a good job of presenting the psyche of the character with like subtle cues, such as like seeing when he's not fully committed to his obsessive 6,000 calories a day fitness diet, and you see him like actually eating cake and like bad unhealthy food and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there's just some really, I think, impressive scenes and touches. I mean, when he goes to the grocery store and he makes a point of saying how he has to drive very far to find a grocery store with healthy food, and all the food close to him is junk food. You see old white women like turn away and be scared of him because of his massive frame. We watch him have one of the worst dates ever recorded on film when he goes out with his coworker played by Haley Bennett. I mean, again, just something that's really hard to watch. We see him actually connect with his idol, the bodybuilder Brad, and that does not go the way he anticipated, and is, I think, a really, really, really tough moment in the film. Very sad. We also see him connect with a prostitute character played by Taylor Page. Again, looking for connection, looking for acceptance anywhere he can, but like he's not totally stupid. He understands what people are and aren't giving him and whatnot. There's a moment where he completely loses his cool, and then that comes way back around where people retaliate against him for what he's done. Then we see that come full circle again in terms of behavior in a diner. Police brutality is involved in the movie. I mean, God, like there's so much in the movie, and I think that's probably perhaps like the problem with it, right? Like at one point he does get guns, a la Taxi Driver. Like there's a lot going on, and it starts to really rip the movie. And I just don't know if I loved the conclusion of the film. Like I just was a bit. I thought the movie kind of skipped some steps to have Killian come to the conclusion he does at the end of the movie and make the decision or lack thereof that he does at the end. I just don't know if that fully got to where it needed to go. I mean, there's these moments briefly in the movie, starting in the beginning, where he's talking with like his mandated counselor from past violence in his past, and him talking, and you can hear how delusional he is, right? But we don't really get super deep into his mental state, into his mental health, and I think that would have been great. Obviously, there's a lot of physical stuff when he trashes the store, when he gets arrested, when he gets in fights, things like that. But there wasn't enough, I think, of the emotionality as we could have used. I mean, there's still a lot of it there, and I think, again, like I think the Major's performance, there is some inherent subtlety in terms of his body language, in terms of his facial expressions in the movie. I think it's certainly a really worthy movie. It's again tough to watch at times. It's a tough sit, and that would be the case even if Majors wasn't a significantly damaged public figure who has a lot of people that absolutely despise him for his own actions. So yeah, in that regard, not surprising that the movie grossed like 700,000. It wasn't a big hit. I think they were aiming for 1 million reportedly, and they came under that. So we'll see what happens with this. I wouldn't be shocked if this movie like chugs along in the years to come on like streaming and VOD and stuff. Obviously, it's not going to be a big hit. Who knows what would have happened in a different universe if Majors wasn't a toxic person, and this movie actually got to be received on its own merits. Now that's obviously impossible. So I am happy that it got released. I think that's only fair to everyone else involved in the movie, especially the director Elijah Bynum, but everyone else as well. And yeah, I mean, I think for me, you know, can't excuse what's happened in Majors. Some people would point to the fact that he's already, been through the justice system for one of the, his chief crimes, convicted of those and such, and is he allowed to move on and whatnot. And I guess we'll see what happens with his career in the years to come. He's still not attached to any major studio work, or I think any new work at all, for that matter. And until that changes, there's really nothing more to say on it, honestly. I don't think he's going to get any major studio work. It would have to be super independent stuff, perhaps stuff over in Europe, similar to how Johnny Depp is working these days, or Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, stuff like that, right? I just don't think anyone's going to touch him over here. It makes sense that Radcliffe picked up the movie. I think it was kind of an easy call for them. Um, Given a movie that was this well received, they probably got it at a discount, at least for their own budget and standards as a small distributor. But yeah, I mean, some people will refuse to see the movie. Again, I think that's perfectly reasonable. On the other hand, I think if you want to see the movie, because Major's not the only aspect of the movie, I think that's also fair as well. And that's why I saw the movie. That's why I wanted to review it. I was looking forward to seeing it because of the reception to it, despite all the toxicity around Majors. And I think if anything, I hope that in the future, Majors will reconcile at least a little bit more with his past, because he really has not commented on it. I mean, Rolling Stone recently unearthed audio of him talking to his ex-girlfriend, the one who he was convicted of assaulting, and it kind of contradicts a lot of his publicly said things in terms of always pleading his innocence and things like that. So um, I think the guy still has a lot of work to do in terms of rationalizing that to the public. And of course, there's other accusers of his that have come out publicly as well and said things. So we'll see. I mean, this could very well be like the final footnote for all we know. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Magazine Dreams. I'd recommend the movie. Again, it's not great, but I think it's very good. There's a lot of excellent aspects of it, and yeah, I think it's certainly worth a watch. Let me know though, what did you think of Magazine Dreams? What'd you like most about it? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.